Matthew 5:13 says, "You are the salt for the land, but if salt becomes tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except being thrown out for people to trample on." Romans 12:1. Romans 12:1 says, "I exhort you, therefore, brothers, in view of God's mercies, to offer yourselves as a sacrifice, living and set apart for God. This will please Him. It is the logical temple worship for you." So, notice that the salt was required on every one of those offerings. And it was called several times a covenant of salt, which is unbreakable. And we are to be the salt of the earth, right? And once it's made not salty anymore, what good is it? What good are you? So therefore, be dedicated and to do the right thing. Anybody want to expound on that just a little? Yes, sir.
Actually, I found out what salt with no saltiness is. It's sand. Because back in those days, when they made salt, it had sand mixed into it. So when the salt was used up, there was still stuff left over, but it wasn't salt.
Well, also like Himalayan salt, some of the lower grade stuff, you leave it out in the rain, it just leaves a little pile of mineral. Don't taste like anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, early mining also the evaporated carbon.
My wife watches a lot of cooking shows, and they had this little trivia thing. They said, what's the difference between regular salt and sea salt?
One has over 92 elements in it.
All salt is sea salt. Anyway, that was the answer on the show. So if we're to be the salt of the earth, this is very important, a salt covenant. I think it was really good. I liked it. The priest, the Mashiach, read Yeshayahu 61, 1 through 2. We're going kind of fast. We're almost done. 61. The spirit of Adonai, Elohim, is upon me, because Adonai has anointed me to announce good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom to the captives, to let out into the light those bound in the dark, to proclaim the year of the favor of Adonai and the day of vengeance for our God, to comfort all who mourn. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Melchizedek document, Melchizedek or Melchizedek, however you want to say it, is substituted for Adonai, for the Tetragrammaton, the Vav. And in 11 Qumran 13, columns 4 through 9, quotes Isaiah 61, 1 and 2, but substitutes in the year of Melchizedek's favor for in the year of Adonai's favor. It's pretty interesting, right? But I'm sure you guys have seen this before, right? You haven't?
I hadn't heard about that, but
No, I never heard of that.
it was already suspected that Melchizedek was another person who was equated with Yeshua as possibly being him.
And in Psalms, Adonai has sworn and does not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Anybody want to comment or anything on that? Jim, I know you've studied this out. You and I talked about it before.
Well, just in my opinion, priest order of Melchizedek comes a priesthood straight from God in his court.
Yeah.
There's also the anointed priest for his service on earth. That's two different things. So you're either a priest by birth from the earthly one that was set up, or I think even a more special one is the priest is directly from God, from his court.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I've looked at Melchizedek a few times. Interesting guy. That having not had parents, and also even his name, King of Salem.
Well, there are several theories out there about who it was. I mean, like a real person, some even say one of Adam's sons. They're just theories, I mean, but I think what we're talking about here is right. Two orders of the priesthood.
He was also a priest and a king,
Yeah.
which is what God said multiple times that he wanted his people to be, but because they've said, oh, God scares us too much and put somebody between us and him. And that's why he created the Kohanim.
I like it. If someone sins by doing something against any of the mitzvot, which should not be done, he is guilty, even if he is unaware of it. We talked about this just a little bit earlier, and he bears the consequences of his wrongdoing. That's in the Torah. Even if he is unaware of it, he bears the consequences of his wrongdoing. And that's, of course, when I spoke up and said, Baruch Hashem for the blood of Moshiach. Right? Questions? What about answers?
We always like to ask on this one. In Hebrews, it says, for without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin.
Yeah.
Is that the case? Hebrews said it must be. But in our Torah portion today, if you're the poorest of poor, there's no blood involved.
True.
For sin, often for sin.
That just goes to show if you're really, really poor, you can't be forgiven.
Oh,
I'm just joking. That is absolutely farthest thing from the truth.
Half the world's done.
And that's an excellent question, Jim. And
on the other hand, when it says that in Hebrews, it's specifically referring to Yeshua's blood being shed as remission for sin, because that's what it was for.
Could it be that it's unintentional sin here that's mentioned has something to do with it possibly?
that is a big theme here through this Torah portion is unintentional sin. But
I do think the mention of it in Hebrews has more to it. And I'm taking it literal.
yeah,
There's more to it, meaning possibly, like you said.
yes, sir.
Meaning Yeshua's sacrifice.
Yeshua's sacrifice. Yeah.
But I just always like that. That's something I ask people. Does blood have to be shed to get forgiveness of sin?
Except blood was shed.
Well, it's,
Evidently in Torah, no.
unless you're really poor and you can bring some flour, right, during those times. Yes. What do you got?
What are we supposed to do to avoid eating blood?
Don't eat it.
I think what she means is
When you slaughter the animal, make sure the blood is completely drained out, and when you're cooking your food, make sure it's completely cooked out. So what do they call it? A rare steak is right out. Cannot eat it.
You want to tell me what I call mine?
or expressly drink.
And it's always good to make sure the blood's out of your pork chops because that'll give you trichinosis.
Which you shouldn't anyway.
Of course, I'm joking again. But so you cook it out and you make sure that it's completely drained out. There's a cultural way of killing animals. So when we slaughter chickens, we put them in a cone, kind of puts them together like that, and make tiny cuts along their earlobes, and they gently bleed completely out.
Yeah, you're supposed to cut your whole boat. Like, it's just not the bone, because then
Yeah, well, if you just go 2 slits right to the earlobes, it's everything. You got nothing. Yep. Same thing with fish. You can cut the bottom of their tail. They will bleed right out. Go ahead.
I did not know that.
And just on that same note, I know that nowadays that's kind of taken, you would look at that commandment from a more like culinary perspective, but is it maybe harking back to the fact that a lot of non-Jewish people drank blood as part of either their lifestyle or religious rituals?
Or stupid rituals. Yeah, of course, that's a thing.
Well, because I noticed there's not really, in the Torah, there's not really any example given of how you, I don't know, bleed out an animal or anything like that. Yeah,
Right.
there's-
Yeah.
But the rabbinic, way of doing it is not really described in the Torah. But is that because it's more, it's pressuring the focus of that commandment is more towards effective, is a caution against adopting those pagan rituals of like eating things that are alive or
Well,
drinking
and
blood or things like that.
Excellent question. So the question was, is that in the long lines of adopting pagan rituals of drinking blood and stuff? In this particular Torah portion, we're talking about the blood of the sacrifices, the blood of the offerings that you bring, that all belongs to Adonai. The life belongs to God. Set apart, you cannot partake of it. And also some of the fat on the animal, which we talked about a little earlier, which mostly the suet, it's the fat that envelops all of the organs that can be peeled away like skin. We also talked about, in your steak, there's marbling, just a little bit. There's a little tiny rim of fat, and I made another joke there, that little tiny rim of fat on your pork chops, right?
Also on bacon.
Oh, yeah, or on bacon. And they put it on turkey bacon with a little bit of discolorant to make it look like, right? So anyway, what they're saying is here, you don't eat that blood because the life belongs to God. I mean, it's His. And in fact, you're supposed to pour it in the ground in another scripture. But that is not to discount the fact that there were cultures that would drink blood, or and I even heard of in the United States early on, mountain men being so cold and without food, being out there trapping and they haven't gotten anything, will bleed their horses just a little bit and drink that just to stay alive. Right? I've heard of that.
Well, I just had a comment. Addie's position, I think, is really, I like her position better, but from reading a lot of culinary books, they're eating blood all over the world is a very common practice that doesn't have
It is.
anything to do with,
Yeah.
Blood
pudding.
And blood sausages. I mean, from a technical standpoint, it's pretty nutritious.
But it doesn't belong to us.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily have any, for all the people that do eat blood, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're wicked and secretly closeted or something.
No, you're absolutely right. It doesn't. But just a few minutes ago, we talked about that it is right here. We talked about if someone sins by doing something against any of the mitzvot Adonai concerning things which should not be done, he is guilty, even if he is unaware of it. So still a sin, whether they know it or not. Right? Yeah.
So something that was sort of kind of brought up, but is actually specifically mentioned in the Torah is that the life is in the blood.
Life is in the blood.
But also culinarily, they have found that the juices that come out of a steak, even though they are red, are not actually blood. It's a different thing.
I'll have to take your word for that. I'm not gonna get into that, but I trust you, but not for me. Nope, not happening.
I don't like to use it.
Right. All right. So, any questions? Any more questions or any more answers? Yes, ma'am.
It's just a very small question. I noticed when they did the birds, when they sacrificed the birds, it was a little different than when they did the animals. In other words, they did take some parts out and throw them aside. Where when they did the animals for the burnt offering, it was pretty much everything. So is there a reason?
I don't know what that reason is. Only that.
Birds, you have a harder time getting everything out. So
No, not me.
they do have two brains, so you can just basically cut off their head. They can still come, but
A chicken is much larger than a pigeon.
Well, I hunt doves, which is much smaller than a pigeon.
Do they really taste as good as they say?
They taste fantastic.
Oh, okay.
The Bible doesn't really say why that difference is. It does give the procedure though, so.
I think the formation is interesting when it said it split it, spread the wings. I mean, when you imagine that in your mind's eye, kind of looks like a butterfly almost.
Well, I thought it might have something to do with the smell because it mentions the aroma before the Lord. And I thought, is the crop or gizzard or does it just smell really bad when it's cooking or something?
They
No.
I don't know.
Actually, wait, pretty good.
Um,
You usually grain in
I
the
have
crop.
a theory.
So you'd be burning the grains.
I have a theory. Depends on what they ate. They may have eaten non-kosher insects, and if that's the case, then non-kosher things, no, not kosher.
Well, the cows eat bugs all the time in there.
Well, birds specifically go after insects or grains. And since,
But as far as why the difference in the slaughter method, honestly, I really don't know. Wayne, you got anything?
Yeah, but with the cutting of the throat is actually because it's the correct artery. That most of the blood goes through the major arteries so that there's blood flowing everywhere at a a lot better.
Yeah, gotcha.
But when the blood flow has been cut at the neck, the blood flows out of the neck so that, because of major arteries, so that all of blood, because the heart keeps pumping. Of course, with the chicken getting its head cut, it runs around a football field. But seriously, that's just like messed up. It's hilarious.
Never seen it, so I wouldn't know.
What you got, Wayne?
Well, I was just saying that even when you squeeze a block of tofu, before you squeeze a block of tofu, you get the juices out, just like blood.
I'm telling Mom. Mom, Wayne's being silly. He won't stop. Hey, we got some upcoming events. You already know one of them because you've been practicing a play, right? And that's Pesach. The moon was sighted on the 14th of March after sunset in Jerusalem. Erev Pesach, of course, then would be 28 March rabbinic calendar. Erev Pesach is 27 March. Beit Tefillah plans to hold an informal Seder here at Impact Center. I don't know all what has to go into preparation for that this year. I don't know what your vision is, but we'll work on it this week and get everything we need squared away. But I would say, since we're so close to unleavened bread, you should already have your houses clean, so don't bring your leaven. You agree?
Right. Traditionally, the last 11 would be around lunchtime on
Yeah.
Shabbat.
So don't bring anything with yeast in it. Or anything that you consider leavening. What's that, sir?
But if your trash runs on Friday, that's all be out by it.
Yeah, or you burn it in your backyard and get a ticket from the city.
He gets,
We don't live in the city.
Next thing, we need to plan a work day at the Impact Community Center, and I intend to have a vote on it right now with the people that are here. So, Mrs. Soborowski, I hope you're ready to answer for your husband, because we need to plan a date. These are the 3 dates that I propose.
Second Tuesday.
Third Tuesday of next week. Yom Rishon, which is Sunday, April the 3rd. Yom Rishon, Sunday, April 24th. Or Yom Rishon, May 1st. Who thinks they can make it on April 3rd? That is in just a few weeks.
Are they all on Sunday?
All on Sunday.
Then we can make a day of them.
Great. So, okay. You have one that you might prefer? I know you guys have other events and other things going on those days, so I want to give you at least 3 choices.
Actually, April 3rd, I'm not.
We have a family coming on that Sunday.
Which, they're all Sundays.
I'm
Which one?
sorry. The third Yom Rishon.
On the 3rd. Third. Okay, on the 3rd. Okay, so the 3rd is right out.
I mean, April 3rd or the 3rd option? April 3rd. Okay. There's 3
Wait, we're so literal. Okay, so April 3rd is out. So now we're going to vote April 24th or May 1st.
That sounds good.
24th.
Wayne,
I think 24th would work great.
all in favor of April 24th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, April 24th will be our work day. I will have a list of things we need to do and a list of materials that we might need and things that we're going to try to accomplish so that it's not just a mess. We'll get there, get to work, get it done, and maybe have lunch or something somewhere. Okay? Say again, sir?
It was,
He was just saying he's a Dominion voter. He's a vote twice.
All right. There you go. That is all I have, so let us do Havdalah. No.
Too early.
Oh, is it? Oh, sun's not down yet?
Nope, not for till 18:45, so we're gonna probably be before cocktails.
Okay, all right, well, then let us pray and clean up, and we will safely travel back to our Beits, our Beit seating. Abba Father, in the name of Yeshua the Messiah, we are truly thankful that we can come together in your name on Shabbat. We thank you for it, Father. Your Torah does strengthen us. Please go with us, each one, to our homes, and let us have a good week and honor you with every single thing we do. Please let us be the salt of the earth, salt covenant with you, Father, in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. Amen. Amen.
Where do you-